Ladies and gentlemen, this Red Gaming Tech.com video, we've got yet more on the fiasco of used games on the Xbox One. A representative from Microsoft has called the report so far inaccurate and incomplete. This comes to us from Major Nelson, and I'm sure you know who he is. He, of course, is a well-known representative of Microsoft and the Xbox brand in general. And I'm going to read an exact quote. Over the past few days, we have been reading comments and message board following the Xbox One announcement. There are a few questions regarding used games. The ability to trade in or resell games is important to gamers and to Xbox. While Xbox One is designed to support the trade-in and resale of games, reports have policies for trade-in and resale are inaccurate and incomplete. We can disclose more information in the near future. End quote. So once again, he's saying it's inaccurate, but he's not exactly telling us how it's inaccurate, why it's inaccurate, what their plans are. You get the general drift. You see, the problem is there are so many conflicting reports right now. I think this is a case of maybe one person speaks to one person, and you know how rumors go. They slowly start to change and evolve over time. The other problem is maybe Microsoft have had multiple plans, gone through many different iterations, and then one developer or maybe one retailer or publisher has been told one thing, another has been told another thing. Maybe it could be idle speculation. Regardless, MCV reports that Microsoft will introduce a system that basically forces retailers to share revenues from used games with Microsoft and the game's developer. And believe it or not, the retailer's cut is suggested to be around 10%. You can imagine that this drastically reduces their incentive to deal with used games. In the same report, they've also suggested that if you want to trade your game to another person's account, you'll have to pay a £35, I'm not sure what that is in dollars yet, there doesn't seem to be a price going about, a reactivation fee. However, this seems to be for private trade. The reason that I say this is because this takes into account the entire transaction process, and there's no mention of splitting fees with the retailer or anything similar. So, in other words, I have a game, I want to sell it to my friend Tom. He says to me, okay, how much is that going to cost, dude? I say, well, nothing, £35. So, in other words, if I trade it with him, what? I have to give it, if I want to give him that game, it's going to cost him 35. If I want to sell it to him, I'm going to have to sell it for 5, because otherwise he could buy a new copy for cheaper. Let's say I sell it to him for £20, just for example. That's going to cost him 55 total. That doesn't really make sense either. However, completely conflicting to this, another website, Polygon, says that from sources familiar with the system, they're not really giving accurate details or anything else. That's another problem with this, by the way, that there is no fee for reactivating a previously registered to another account, but that copy will be removed from your account. So let's say you and I wanted to trade a game, and let's say you had, I don't know, the next Call of Duty, and you said, you know what, dude, I'm bored with this, I want to give it to you. There's no fee for you transferring that game to my account, but, and that's the kicker, your account will no longer be linked to that game. We do know, of course, that Microsoft have pretty much confirmed that you will need to reconnect your Xbox to the Microsoft servers every so often, periodically. We don't know how often that is. In an interview, they did say something like, this is not exact quote, but I believe it's within every 24 hours. That was pretty much the quote. But maybe they're backtracking on that. Maybe people are pretty pissed because, after all, certain services you've got a hell of a lot longer. Hell, even Office 365, which, in case you're not familiar with it, you probably are, but I'll just quickly go through it anyway. Office 365 gives you the ability to install a suite of Office applications, so that, of course, would be Excel, Word, as well as give you other functionality, should you so wish, and that includes let's go with cloud storage, Microsoft Exchange, which is basically another functionality of an email client. I'm not going to go too much into that. And you can do that via a monthly subscription. depending on how the level of service is. So, for example, it could be £10, just to use an arbitrary figure. Now, the difference is, let's say that your laptop is on the run, and you're on the run, shall I say, and you can't actually access the internet for whatever reason. Your account will not suddenly terminate. You will still be able to access it. It will just prompt you for a warning after a certain period of time saying, by the way, you need to connect to the internet within, I believe the period is a month. It's fairly generous. And Adobe also have the same with its Creative Cloud. You could basically use the Adobe applications downloaded onto your system, and the applications are installed. You download the installer, you run it, but you don't buy them. As far as I understand it, I haven't checked into this recently, but as far as I understand it with Adobe, you simply buy the license. That you're basically paying rental. It's almost like, think of it like I don't know, a television line or your cable. Yeah, so you've basically installed the application, and then you have to connect to the service every, I think it's 30 days. And obviously every 24 hours for a games console compared to, every, month for a creative application, it's not really, there's something a bit off there, shall we say. However, apparently, the reports also claim that Microsoft theoretically could offer special codes. Now, these codes could prevent or at least slow down the ability to check for internet access. Now, the purpose of this would be for users who simply are unable to access the internet frequently. An example of this would be, for example, developing countries, or, say, members of the military who are going abroad, foreign aid workers, whatever. And obviously that could have some cool applications as well. If, however, the Polygon report is accurate, and there is no fee for activating, or should I say deactivating, a game from a previously registered account, that also must have some inherent limitations upon it. Allow me to give you a basic scenario. Let's say you and I are playing let's say you come around my house and you look at a game. Let's say Killathon 3000. Let's just use that famous example, or infamous example of my own. Okay, so you like the look of Killathon 3000. I tell you, you know what? I'm just going to let you borrow it from my account. I'll deactivate it, give it to you, and then you can just give it back to me at some point in the not too distant future. Because I've just completed it. Let's just say Killathon 3000 is a game like Infamous, just for example, and you can complete it and that's it. And you say, okay, cool. So I deactivate it, I give it to you, you play it for a couple of weeks, whatever it takes you to complete it, and then you give it back to me. Surely Microsoft have to realize that now you're just basically lending games to everyone. There has to be some kind of system in there where you can only either trade it in a certain finite amount of times, or maybe you can't give it back to the same account that originally issued it to you, or maybe you can only do that a certain amount of times, because obviously that could be open to abuse as well. This is the problem with this type of system. It comes to a situation where there's going to be a lot of what-ifs. And honestly speaking, I'm not against the system in one way. Developers and publishers, as you know, do not get a slice of any of the used game pie. It's that simple. Just black and white. If you were to pirate a game, or you were to buy a used game, in many ways there's absolutely no difference. The only difference between the used game and the pirate game is they may make money from you from purchasing DLC, or they may make money from you, say, purchasing an online pass if that game requires one. And as I've been very vocal about, and I'm just going to reiterate, I do have issues with the way a lot of shops, I'm assuming it's the same in the United States, judging from memes and internet messages and forums and communications with American friends and so forth. But in the UK especially, there's not that much difference between used and new. I've given this example a couple of times, so I'll just do it one more time just to kind of draw every last bit of soul out of the thing before we discard it. One of the issues with, say, the whole system at the moment is, let's say I was to trade in a new game. Let's say it had just been released just a couple of days ago, and I was like, you know what, this game sucks, or I've completed it, or whatever. Well, quite simply put, I would get a very small amount of money compared to what I actually paid for it. So let's say I was to get, I don't know, let's say I paid 40 for it, and I was to get 23 or 25 for it in return. So in other words, I've lost, like, you know, £15 just for example, and sometimes it's actually more than that, just depending on how popular the game is, and also how many copies they've got in stock and so forth. The problem with this is then they will go ahead and they'll mark that game up to like £37. So in other words, the new copy will cost like 40, and the used copy will actually cost 37. In fact, I've actually seen some examples where the used copy is like 37, and the new copy is just a few, you know, shelves away, and they've actually got that on sale. It's an actual sale, so, you know, they've got like 25% off or whatever, and it'll be like £30. So, in other words, you'll see like the used game actually retailing or selling for more than the new, and that's obviously a major problem as well. All of this points to a rather difficult situation, and honestly speaking, it's not a very easy one for anyone to answer. I think it's worse because console gamers have had so much freedom before. I, you know, want to lend you a game or sell you a game or whatever. It's easy. It's that simple. And some people, for a while now, have joked about, you know, in the future, if you want to see the ending, you'll have to pay $2.99 to download the last mission and see the true ending for the game, or, you know, you want a patch that actually fixes your game, you're going to have to pay money. And obviously that's nowhere near this kind of draconian measures that, you know, I was joking about with a friend, but at the same time, we are getting to the point where obviously games now are becoming absolutely huge business. They have been for a long time, and they're not going to slow down. I mean, obviously there is a little bit of a dip in the market right now. We're going to have to see how it recovers on the next generation of games and, games basically. But, well, right now everything is up in the air. This is one area, however, just to close, that I would really like Microsoft to hurry their asses up and just tell us how it works. Sony, for the most part, were clear at the start, and then they just simply clarified it further. And I think if Sony had the opportunity, Sony would definitely go with the no-use game thing, because, you know, in a perfect world where customers will just, well, basically bend over for your desires, you would be very happy about that, because it doesn't, well, benefit you not to do that. In reality, however, customers are looking for the best deals possible, especially right now when obviously people are struggling for either work or whatever. And Sony were quite smart in that. They decided to make their system simple, easy to understand. We'll see if Microsoft's system is tolerated by gamers, assuming it's even as slightly as draconian as what people are saying. If it's true, for example, that I can simply give you my game for completely free, I have absolutely no problem with that. And I think as long as there's maybe some kind of system or safeguard in there to at least curb that to a sensible degree, Microsoft would probably be happy with that as well, but I suppose we'll just have to see what happens. Regardless, that is this video done. Hopefully you've enjoyed it.